Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. This is my newest Warhammer 40,000 army, my Kroot. This is like 2,000 points on the dot of a Tau army focused almost solely on the Kroot, and I love it. This took over a year to put all of this together. It is 112 models, which is a lot. This is a horde army. And now that I've got it done, I've played about 7 or 8 games with it, full 2,000 points, and I really like it. It's so much fun. It is actually a swarm horde army that's fun to play because you're not just taking models off the board constantly, quickly, and it feels bad, but the rules for Kroot hunting back, Games Workshop has really crafted a sub-faction for Tau that's really, really fun to play. Kroot Hunting Pack is a detachment built all around the Kroot, and it's got some wonderful stratagems, but the most important thing is actually the detachment abilities. It gives all Kroot units a 5-up invulnerable save against ranged attacks and a 6-up invulnerable save in close combat. This is really, really good because Kroot typically don't get a save. Sometimes they can gain benefit of cover to give them a little something, but with that 5-up invuln, I'm basically always rolling that 5-up invuln. And what's really nice is I don't kind of have to think about cover, and so I can just run my boys anywhere I want, and no matter what, I'm getting that save. If I have a Flesh Shaper attached, I even get a 6-up Feel No Pain. Like all of that working together in conjunction makes my guys way more survivable than my opponent would think. And typically when I've got a whole bunch of Kroot, there are 70 Kroot carnivores in this force, and technically there's 90 Kroot carnivores, because there's a stratagem called Join the Hunt. If a unit dies, an infantry unit or Kroot dies, then I can spend 2 CP to put it back into strategic reserve. This one particular stratagem is kind of what started this whole army. It's all built around that, and that is the Blue Man Kroot. I've got 20 Kroot that are all painted blue. They're kind of greenish blue, with 2 attached characters. This is the unit that I play most aggressively. I throw it out there for my opponent to work on, and then as soon as it comes off the board, it goes back into strategic reserve to come back onto the board. I absolutely love it. It's so cool. It means that there's so many Kroot carnivores in this army, and I love it. And the carnivores, with that 5-up invulnerable save, my opponent shoots some stuff at it, and like 9 times out of 10, they don't wipe the squad. They stick around to do just a little something. And that little something is move blocking. In all of my games, I don't think the Kroot carnivores have ever done anything. Maybe they've killed a Space Marine or a couple of Orc boys, but realistically, there are 10 bolter shots in the shooting phase, and there are 20 fisticuff punches in the close combat phase. They do nothing. They absolutely don't do anything, but what they do is they be bodies. Another big chunk of this army is Krootox Rampagers and Krootox Riders. These guys are the heavy hitting Kroots. They are chunky with toughness 6, they got 4 wounds apiece. The Rampagers can do some charge mortals, and the Riders have a pretty darn solid gun. And these guys do a lot of the actual damage that my Kroot can put out there. Another chunk of the Kroot are these little guys, the Lone Spears. These guys are incredibly important. They situationally actually do a lot of damage. They've got their blast javelins, which is D6 attacks. I think it's strength 10. Like it's not bad. And every now and then they pop off and they kill a bunch of Space Marines or they take some wounds off of a vehicle. But the really important thing that these guys do is they have an ability, whatever they shoot at, if they manage to hit that thing, which they very often do, D6 attacks, then the rest of my Kroot get reroll hits against that specific thing. The way that Kroot Hunting Pack plays is an absolute engine. And one thing that I forgot to say about the detachment is it gives you the 5-up invulnerable save, but it also gives you +1 to your attacks made against units that are below their starting strength. And so step 1 of my game plan is always going to be using the Lone Spears to try to chip away at least one guy out of the squad so that the rest of my Kroot army gets even better at shooting that specific thing. And then giving it rerolls, hopefully killing a guy to give every other Kroot thing +1 against it. There's also a stratagem that I try to use almost every turn called a Trap Well Laid, which gives me +1 AP against one specific thing that my Kroot are trying to kill. And so instead of leaning on really, really good data sheets that are, really good at the rock, paper, scissors of 40k to try to do something, instead, I'll shoot every individual enemy unit with like 3 or 4 or 5 somethings, and then maybe do a little charging with the Rampagers or the Krootox Riders to do even more in close combat. It's really, really fun. When it starts to pop off, like my opponent will start to lose models that they did not expect to lose to piddly little Kroots. The Lone Spears get shoot and scoot. They have movement 12, and so they can get right into position, throw their javelin, and then they can make a D6, or they can make a 6-inch regular move, and so that can scoot them right back behind cover. And typically, they're also backed up by a squad of doggos who are creating a wall to prevent any sort of charges from getting to the Lone Spears, because these guys are really important. When I start to lose the Lone Spears, things start to go downhill. But so far, I have not been losing the Lone Spears. So much Kroot goodness. I've also got a 5-man squad of Vespid Stingwings. These guys have uppy downy, so at the end of my opponent's phase, or at the end of my opponent's turn, these guys can go up into the sky and then come back down in my own movement phase. These guys score me so many secondary objectives and also score me primary. Also, they're really not bad with their little guns. They've got, I think they're AP 1 damage 2, or maybe they be AP 2 damage 2. They don't often do a ton, and unfortunately, they're Vespid, so they don't gain any benefits from the Tau or the Kroot. They're kind of just their own thing, but their own thing is really, really solid. That is the Kroot chunk of this army, but there is another Viorla painted chunk, and that is the Tau. And the Tau back me up so much, giving me some actually good damage dealing. I've been taking the Skyray gunships, and these guys, I would say they're not as consistent as like a Hammerhead gunship, but what they are is really, really good at taking on some of the things that my regular Krootsies really, really struggle into. The Seeker missiles are really good at cracking heavy armor. They have anti-fly capability. I think they get reroll hits against units that have fly, and you would be surprised how many enemy things have the fly keyword. Demon Princes with Wings have fly. Jump Pack Space Marines have fly. Every jet bike in the game has fly. Almost every Eldar and Dark Eldar vehicle has the fly keyword. So these things will absolutely mulch those things. And they're also really big and scary looking. And so I feel like in almost all the games I've played, all of my opponents have beelined straight for these things, which is kind of fine, because if these die, I don't really care. It's actually kind of the Kroot that do the damage in my army. And so if they're wasting a lot of resources trying to take these things down, that is perfectly fine. But speaking of resources, another really important resource are my battle suits. These are the Sun Fury or Sun Forge battle suits, the Melta ones. I've got a 3-man squad of Melta guns with the Cold Star Commander with 4 more Melta guns. These guys will kill God. I love them so much. They've got movement 10. And then I think the Cold Star might have movement 12. And so he gets I'm able to get into spots where my opponent might not think I would be able to get to. And then 10 Melta-Gun shots that are rerolling wounds and rerolling damage against monsters and vehicles. It gets really, really spicy. Sometimes I'll do like 60 points of damage in the right scenarios. It is beautiful. One thing that typically follows around my stealth suits is Shadow Sun. Shadow Sun is a little 100-point character. She is the overall commander of the Tau forces, and she's also got 2 Melta guns that always seem to bounce because it's 2 shots hitting on 2s, wounding on 5s. So chances are it doesn't do anything, but she has a blanket aura of reroll 1s to wound, which can be really nice. If I only have 2 Melta shots out of each of these guys, hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s is basically hitting on 2s. So it's a really, really solid benefit. I've been tinkering around with maybe dropping her from the list in favor of some other things, but she does put in the work. She also has Lone Op 12 and Stealth. And I think she's -1 to be wounded. So even though she's just basically 2 Space Marines taped together, my opponents have struggled sometimes to bring her down. The Tau really do create like the hammer of this force. that can, like, these guys, they take out knights like nobody's business. They kill vehicles. They can do some serious damage to Space Marines. They struggle into Terminators, but everything struggles into Terminators. A 4-up invulnerable save is just a 50-50 roll. If my opponent gets a little lucky, they survive. If they get a little unlucky, they die. There's no way to mathematically beat an invuln save except for just absolute mass volumes of fire. And then even mass volumes of fire typically isn't strong enough to really add up to that many wounds. But that is the Tau half of this army. The actual game plan that I've discovered, because I put this together kind of expecting it to be a melee focused army. I've got a lot of rampagers. The Kroot carnivores are their stat line is way better in close combat than it is at range, although that doesn't seem to matter. I really thought it was going to be a close combat army, but no, this is 110% a shooting army. The rampagers can do a little bit in close combat, but overall, the most of the damage that I do is super done in the shooting phase. One tricky thing that I learned is you can't overextend with this force. Even though it literally takes up a quarter of the battlefield all by itself, it can all go away really, really fast. So typically what I like to do is I like to castle up really hard turn 1. The first layer is a beautiful blanket of 70 Kroot carnivores. And then right behind that, I've got the Krootox riders and the Krootox rampagers. Then behind that, I've got the Vespid Stingwings, the Lone Spears, and the Doggos. And then tucked all the way in the back in the middle of this weird 40k cake is the Tau forces. I keep all of that completely castled up, and then everything has Scout 7, so I push out, but I don't push out in the middle. I almost always push out for my natural expansion objective on the side, and then I just sit there as a giant lump of 112 miniatures, and I let my opponent come to try to deal with this. Typically, they'll kill many squads of Kroot carnivores. Maybe they take out Blue Man Kroot. Maybe they do a couple of long-range shots that maybe drop one of my boats. But overall, this force, like, it just sits there. And if they have to come to me, and then I just get to needle them away with all of the different shooting abilities of my different Kroot units. And I do start to lose models very quickly. However, I keep one 3-man squad of Krootox riders in Strategic Reserve and one 10-man squad of carnivores in Strategic Reserve. And so as soon as Blue Man Kroot goes down and I use Join the Hunt stratagem for 2 CP to put them into Strategic Reserve, then the second phase of my game begins. And hopefully in the opponent's deployment zone, or if they've managed to block me out, then somewhere in no man's land, I'll bring in the 3-man rider squad, 10 Kroot carnivores and 20 Kroot carnivores, and then I'll usually have a Lone Spear with their movement 12 run over to this new force of Kroot that has just shown up somewhere on the battlefield. And then I have a second army to play with. It usually throws my opponents through a loop. Typically, it makes them take a good chunk of their army and then split it down the middle. So half of it is going for this new little force, and then half of it is going into the rest of my Kroot. And being able to divide my opponent's army like that has been so helpful, because really, everything here is still pretty darn squishy, and if my opponent really tries, they will kill it all. But if I can slow them down from killing it all enough, I have scored so high in my games with this. I score max out every single secondary. I usually do extremely well on primary. And so my opponent just has to try to get rid of me by the end of the game to stop me from just winning. And really, this is 112 miniatures. Almost all of my games end with like 10 models remaining alive. It all dies, but it's just so much and so good that my opponents really, really, really struggle to just deal with it. I've played really, really well into Orcs. I've played really well into Imperial Knights. I've actually found Space Marines are something that this army does struggle into. And it's because a lot of the Space Marine things that are not very good actually do tech really, really well into anti-horde infantry. Like the random guns on a gladiator, or not a gladiator, a repulsor, not a repulsor even, an impulsor, the new Rhino, the new Primaris Rhino. It's got 2 Fragstorm grenade launchers, the auto gun on top, and then sometimes the missile launcher. And typically those shots do nothing. I've played them many times in game, and I mean, it's just a bunch of strength 4 shooting, who cares? But into Kroot, like the random guns attached to that transport will actually pick up a Kroot squad, no problem. So things like that actually become a little bit more of a challenge for my army than it would be for almost any other force. And since Space Marines are kind of, like, all of their shooting is kind of decent and all of their bodies are pretty survivable, I do have a struggle to actually take them down because 5 intercessors will do a number on my Kroot. Or typically 5 intercessors, you don't have to worry about them that much. It's been interesting that like Space Marines are usually something I have no problem against, but this army in specifically does struggle just a little bit into the Space Marines, but it's been really, really fun. This army plays like nothing I've ever played before. It's so much fun to play. I've been getting the reps in because I would like to play this army competitively, and it is tricky to move 112 models plus another 20 in strategic reserve. It's hard to actually play with that and physically move everybody and keep everything moving and shaking and making sure that all of my overlacking buffs are stacking appropriately every single turn. It does take a lot of work to actually run this army, but I really, really enjoy it. And I just love when my opponent kills, like, they'll kill 2 squads of Kroot carnivores and a dog squad and feel good about themselves. And it's like, that doesn't matter. I would almost want you to do that because it's setting me up perfectly to nail you with the Krootox Rampagers or the Krootox Riders. I absolutely love this force. Now that I have 7 games under my belt and many wins under my belt, there's a couple of little twists and tweaks I would like to do. But before that, I would love to tell you about all the amazing hobby products available from EonsOfBattle.com. On EonsOfBattle.com, we're all restocked on our excellent hobby goodies: Gamer's Grass Tufts, Greytide Studio Bits for your Space Marines, Army Painter paints, brushes, basing cork, ultra thin and ultra thick super glue, and we've got terrain. It's the best way to support us doing what we do by getting a membership. Each month, members get a credit good for any one terrain pack we've ever made or the brand new one. This June, we have created the Ramshackle Bits Pack. This set is full of improvised armor to enhance your vehicles, with massive treads, extra armor, rotating cannons, machine gun turrets, and little goblin gunners, including a bunch of little goblins to help keep all of this upgraded equipment running smoothly. Don't let the shoddy construction fool you. These bits are still plenty lethal, able to sling lead and crush foes under tread. This set also comes with a series of basing bits to litter the wastelands of your battlefields. This set was designed by us and is available at EonsOfBattle.com. In playing this army, some units have definitely stood out to me as amazing, and some units are actually, they're leaving a little bit to be desired, and I would say that is the Rampager and the Krootox Rider. I thought that the Rampagers were gonna be amazing, and they're fine. They do really good charge mortals, and they've got a bunch of attacks at strength 6 that is often hitting on 2s or 3s. It's often re-rolling hits. It's often got +1 AP, damage 2. Like, it's got a lot of stuff going for it. But I just find in my games, they don't do as much as the Rider. The Rider is almost the same model. It lacks the charge mortals, but it picks up this really good gun. 4 shots, a strength 7, AP 1, that can easily be AP 2, flat damage 2. These guys are so crazy good. And I think the Rampagers are 80 points for 3 and the Riders are 90 points for 3. And I think I gotta give it to the Riders. They're really, really solid. They have exactly the same profile in terms of wounds. It's 4 wounds of toughness 6 with the same save characteristic. I don't know if I want to drop a squad of Rampagers and then swap in another squad of Riders, but right now I've got 2 squad of Riders. One of them starts in strategic reserve and one of them starts on the board. And they just do so much work that I feel like I can't leave home without another 3-man squad of these guys. I might drop a Rampager or I might drop Shadow Sun. She's good, but I feel like maybe the Tower are really good already, where my Kroot could use a little bit more of that help. But I'm definitely thinking I do want another squad of Riders. But that is going to take a hot minute to actually get ready to go, because where Rampagers come 3 to a box, the Riders only come 1 to a box. It's like $40 a piece for each of these suckers. So 40 times 3 to actually get a squad up and running. It's not cool. I already got 6. Luckily, I was able to get some of the old Finecast models to work, and that helped out a bunch to get more of these guys. And maybe I can snag some on eBay for a good deal. But these guys, they're so good. I mean, 3 guys, 4 shots apiece, strength 7, hitting on 3s potentially, strength 7, AP -2, damage 2. Like, that can be really juicy. That can really give Space Marines a bad time. They've chipped away wounds from vehicles. I believe they have the grenades keyword, which is sometimes really, really handy. This army is very command point hungry. I love the grenade stratagem because my whole army, or all of the Kroot things in my army, get +1 attack against units that are below starting strength. So often step 1 is just chucking a grenade to like blow up one Space Marine, and then everything else gets so much better at fighting that specific thing. I feel like the riders, like they're just so much. They're just better doing the damage in the shooting phase, and then having the option to charge in and then use those Kroot fists is a little bit better than having essentially no shooting phase, but having ever so slightly better Kroot fists. It's tricky. They do some damage, and opponents don't like them because they are fast, fairly survivable with their toughness 6, and the charge mortals. The charge mortals. These guys, when they charge in, everything that they manage to get into base-to-base contact of, roll a dice, and on a 4-up, they do D3 mortal wounds. That can be really good. I mean, that can be 9 mortal wounds, or it can be 0. It's very swingy, but these guys can do some serious damage. I think the tricky thing that I've had with these guys is they typically go into things that are either a little bit too strong or a little bit too weak. Like they attacked a squad of Blade Guard veterans that the rest of my entire army had slammed into, and so there was like 2 left. And then these guys ran in and just took them out with the charge mortals. But then they were just kind of stuck out in the open, and then they just got picked up immediately on the crackback. Another instance, they charged into Lucius, not Lucius the Eternal, who's the big snake boy. I need Sean to remind me. Fulgrim. They charged Fulgrim, and they did like 6 mortal wounds, and then they just all died. And so it probably would have been better to chip away at Fulgrim with a shooting attack more so than spending, 2 80-point units to do not a heck of a lot to the big Snake Lord. These guys are a little bit tricky, but I do need to get more games in, get more reps, play against more different armies, because there's a lot to love about this force. I really, really enjoyed playing it. My Vespid Stingwings have done some amazing work for me. My Kroot doggos, I mean, they're just so cute, and they do a really good job of move blocking and preventing my opponent from getting his army into the places where he would like to get them to. My lovely Tau Ethereal. Every turn, I get to roll a dice in my command phase, and on a 4-up, she generates a command point. Really, really solid. I feel like she pops off more often than she doesn't, because I spend my command points. I really spend them. 2 CP is already written in for Join the Hunt. Then I like to spend 1 for a Trap Well Laid every single turn. I would love to be throwing grenades every single turn. Honestly, Overwatch with the reroll against Fly with the Skyray gunships is actually really solid. Everything in this army is just their weak sauce in the datasheet, but they're pretty good in the output. And that's really, really fun. And that works out great when you have 112 miniatures. I have been enjoying the spit out of play on this army. I gotta get some more games in. I've got a couple of other 40k armies that I am working on, but for right now, I am having so much fun with my Kroot, and I am looking forward to getting some more games in. If you're a Tau player, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of my Kroot hunting pack list? I have really, really been enjoying it. I can't really imagine too many ways to make this much better. There's a couple of little alterations, but overall, I feel like this is an incredibly solid force. And boy, oh boy, does it fill up my Warhammer carrying case. It's a lot of miniatures. It's really hard to move these guys around. And I find while I'm playing the game, like every single second I have some downtime, I'm putting these guys back onto my movement trays just so that they don't take up too much room, and so that like I can actually get out of here. Games of 40k tend to take a long time, and very often I'm leaving while the store owners are like kind of shooing us out of the store. And so I like to be able to just get out of there. And this is a lot of miniatures, but I really like it. Thanks for watching.